You're on a crowded train, half asleep, just trying to survive the morning rush, and then it happens. Someone's coffee slips from their hand and it's flying toward you in cinematic slow motion. But instead of panic, you blink and your hand moves faster than your brain can register. You catch it midair, spill-free. People stare. You pretend like nothing happened. Because in this world, everyone has powers. Not comic book powers. Not world-ending lasers from your eyeballs. But subtle ones, believable ones. A guy in finance can speed read 10,000 words a minute. A nurse heals minor wounds instantly by touch. A schoolteacher calms an entire class with just their voice. It's not flashy, but it's real. And here's where it starts to get interesting. Imagine if superpowers evolved the way traits do in nature, like better eyesight in hunters or thicker fur in cold regions. If society had nudged evolution in a new direction toward optimization, productivity, emotion control, what kinds of powers would actually emerge? Not the fantasy ones, but the useful ones. The kind you'd barely notice until you didn't have them. That's where things start to get weirdly believable. Because technically, some people already do have strange advantages, whether it's memory, intuition, physical endurance, or pain resistance. Science calls them outliers. We'd just be normalizing the outliers. But what happens when everyone has one? Does fairness finally arrive, or does envy just get smarter? Would jobs, relationships, and even friendships change? Does power help people become better, or does it just magnify what was already there? Because if you could fly, not like, across the globe, but just skip traffic by gliding to work, how would your boss react when you're still late? And that's where this world begins to unravel quietly and maybe even beautifully. Because next comes the real twist. Not everyone wants powers. Some start giving them up. It starts with small things. A guy who could once manipulate sound frequencies to create perfect pitch? He gives it up to enjoy music imperfectly like the rest of us. A woman who could memorize entire books in a glance? She says it's exhausting, like having Wikipedia constantly screaming in your head. Suddenly, powers aren't just cool, they're baggage. See, here's where the psychology kicks in. We always assume superpowers would make life better. But brains are tricky. They adapt too quickly. What feels magical at first becomes mundane shockingly fast. It's called hedonic adaptation, and it's why your dream job, your dream phone, your dream anything starts feeling kind of meh after a while. Superpowers? Same deal. Now sprinkle in some social dynamics. Say someone can detect lies just by looking at micro-expressions. Great for dating, right? Except now every conversation feels like surveillance. Or someone who can multitask 10 things at once. Amazing at first until burnout hits like a freight train. Their brain never truly rests. And here's a surprising twist. Power changes not just the person who has it, but the people around them. Someone with emotional manipulation starts noticing their friends behave differently, more agreeable but also more distant. Trust gets murky. Relationships shift. Not because anyone's evil, but because no one really knows what's real anymore. Socially, things fracture in weird ways. People form communities based on powers. Introverts with mental invisibility, athletes with stamina boosts, creatives with imagination-enhancing perception. Sounds poetic, but it turns tribal fast. Suddenly, you're not just you, you're part of a category. And categories come with expectations. And yet, not all is doom and gloom. There's innovation. A guy who sees in infrared starts mapping disease outbreaks before they happen. A kid with hyperfocus designs software that rewires attention disorders. Some powers bring out the best, nudging humanity toward progress. But remember, powers didn't come with an instruction manual. So society, still fumbling, still adapting. And as governments, schools, and workplaces scramble to make rules for this strange new world, one giant truth hangs in the air. If everyone is special, who decides what normal even means anymore? That's when the world really starts to shift, but not in the catastrophic, apocalyptic way everyone feared. No riots, no dystopia, just a rebalancing. It begins with people experimenting, not rejecting their powers, but learning to coexist with them. A man who used to scan future outcomes in job interviews decides to stop relying on it and instead practices real conversation, just to feel human again. A woman who could copy anyone's skill temporarily, like baking, coding, or dancing, starts using it not to outperform, but to teach. Powers don't replace effort anymore. They enhance understanding. Socially, something surprising happens. Communities start coming together because of their differences, not in spite of them. A neighborhood forms where residents rotate, sharing their powers for collective benefit. One day you help someone calm their nerves with your emotional tuning, and the next, someone uses their memory recall to find your lost wedding ring. It's not transactional. It's generous. Powers become like languages. Everyone speaks a little differently, but you learn from each other. And then comes the global cultural shift. Schools start teaching power literacy. Not just how to use your gift, but when not to. A class where a kid who can move objects with their mind has to practice restraint and empathy, working with others instead of doing everything solo. Emotional intelligence becomes as celebrated as strength. Suddenly, power doesn't isolate people, it brings them closer. Innovation explodes not just in tech or medicine, but in daily life. A girl who can hear brainwave patterns helps create music that literally adapts to your mood in real time. Someone with light manipulation starts designing public spaces where you feel safe, warm, and focused just by entering. Even mental health evolves. A therapist who can feel your unspoken emotions helps people open up in ways never possible before. Instead of power creating hierarchy, it opens up harmony. People aren't racing to be the most powerful, they're learning how to complement each other. And for the first time, society doesn't see power as a shortcut, but a responsibility. That neuroscientist? She wasn't wrong. Powers were never really about domination. They were about awareness, fine-tuning how we connect, listen, act, and grow. Humanity didn't just evolve to be stronger. It evolved to be more together. But that still leaves one last question. If this is what could happen, why does it still feel like we're only scratching the surface of what we're capable of? So what if we had superpowers? Honestly, it wouldn't be the chaos or the utopia we usually imagine. It would be a mix. Some people would thrive. Powers would solve real problems, faster healing, better focus, deeper empathy. They'd make life easier in ways that feel almost boringly practical. No more losing your keys. No more forgetting names. You'd get more done, feel more capable, and maybe even be a little more connected. But it wouldn't be perfect. Power would amplify insecurity just as much as it amplifies strength. People would still compare, still compete, still feel lost even with all the gifts in the world. Some would overuse, others would opt out. And finding balance? That would become the real superpower. In the end, the most believable outcome is simple. Life would still feel like life. A bit more efficient, a bit more strange, but still full of human things, awkwardness, laughter, longing, confusion. Powers wouldn't erase that. They'd just add a new layer. And maybe that's the whole point. Superpowers wouldn't make us less human. They just force us to decide what kind of human we want to be. So the question isn't what if we had powers? It's what would we do with them once we did?